So this idea is very clear for Dhyatma Dhidaiva Dhibhuta, looking outside, looking inside, and the very consciousness can do both. Yeah? Sri Aurobindo says that in the later tradition, it was presented that looking inside is the most desired. So the world is non-existent. It's a Maya, illusion, problem for us. So we have to look inside and find our inner self and dissolve ourselves into it. So to say, these movements from outside to inside. Close your eyes, ears, all senses, and plunge inside. And never return back, so to say. That was the ideal. But the materialistic ideal is looking outside and living outside life in all those, material forms and perceptions and troubles and everything else as we live it today. So looking outward, from with all our senses, looking outside and perceiving everything as real outside. So Sri Aurobindo says that the ancient Vedantic method was different. It was neither looking inside purely nor looking outside purely. It was a channel from inside to outside, bringing the inner self, inner perception of the self to the without. And in the outer environment, kind of establishing the inner perception. And that was the Vedantic yoga. So these senses or faculties of consciousness have to become pure channels and channelize the inner self, the inner light, to the outside. Does it make sense? Yeah. After this course of 1 year, that should make totally sense. And that is the difference between the Advaitic approach and ancient Vedantic approach. Advaita takes only one part of it, looking within, living within, and disappearing within, whereas ancient Vedanta was more of the Vedic type, which was thinking about transforming the world, the surface, bringing the light of knowledge and consciousness into the surface. Right. This is kind of important. And so on all the levels, these very faculties of consciousness are described in different ways. In the innermost sense, they're secret operations. In their proper domain, their faculties known to us as seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, touching, and feeling. And in the outer sense, they are becoming our senses or even sense organs in the physical sense, eyes and so on, ears. I skip the Sankhya, I'm just going straight to Vedanta. So these were the major faculties which are presented on every level of our existence. On the physical level, we have physical body, we have physical eyes, we have physical ears, we have physical mind, so to say. If you don't want physical mind, you can say brain, but I don't think it's brain. It's a physical mind in the body. And we have speech faculty. And also vital, of course, breathing in and breathing out. And the same we have on the vital level, the same 6. On the mental level, the same 6. We have a mental, so to say, vital. We have physical vital. We have vital. On the mental plane, we have also mental, vital mental, physical mental. So it is 6 faculties as representing one consciousness present on all the levels of our being: physical, vital, mental, supramental, and in the supramental they will change their ways of acting. They will be known as secret operations. And we looked into it already, and we spoke about two ways of studies of consciousness. One is approach to the faculties, when we learn how we see, hear.
Vladimir,
Yeah.
Did I understand it right that there's also prana and aprana on the mental level? How does that look?
Prana and apana. Yeah. Yes.
Is it just vital mental or?
No, this is not only vital. It's interesting. It is vital only on the vital level, but on the mental, there is also the life of the mind. You know, and this life of the mind, the universal mind or higher mind, is living being. It has its force, its dynamism, and so on. It's not only a concept of some kind of abstraction. It's not an abstraction. It's a living being. And also it has its own body, annam. It has a body which we know as manomaya purusha. It has a self. Yeah? It has an establishment of the body, of the life. It has also the mind, the sight, hearing, and word. It can express itself. So if we look behind these faculties, we will see that they are not just terms to name something. Yeah? They are functions. They are faculties of consciousness. So each one of them has something very specific. Vak, for example, is an expression of the self. If self wants to express itself and to communicate itself, it uses this faculty of Vak. Or will, if you want, logos. It expresses itself through will, logos, word. Now, we never thought of these faculties in this way. We always think that speech is just what we are talking, but truly speaking, there is much more to it. Because when we speak because we are driven by some force. When we think, we do not know what is happening when we think. What is this faculty of thinking, or manas? It's a faculty of holding the image of things in front of ourselves in order to bring it into our self and identify with it. And this identification of ourself with the object of self, of sense, is this faculty of the mind. Now, once we are kind of unfolding these faculties and look at them functionally, we will see that there is much more to learn. And the real psychology only begins. We never touched really psychology. We are speaking very bizarre symbolic language of our time. But we never dealt with our proper faculties of consciousness. Look at this beautiful idea which is coming from Vedanta. They never speak about consciousness. They speak only about faculties. For them, faculties is consciousness. Yeah? So the capacity to express oneself is consciousness. The capacity to perceive things, to see them as such, is consciousness. The faculty of comprehending, understanding what you see is consciousness, shrotram. The capacity to hold and to identify and to know by self-identity is consciousness. But they split them into faculties. They don't speak about some abstract consciousness which does all these things. They describe them in terms of the faculties. Do I answer a little bit to your question? I'm going maybe away from what.
No, it's very good.
Yeah, and so if you look at Vayu and Annayu, or Prana and Annam, or Prana and Apana, breathing in and breathing out, in the physical body we have this breathing in and breathing out for some reason, and nobody knows why. Well, biologically we can explain that there is there has to be rhythm in the body, there has to be income of oxygen and so on, and acceleration of some CO2 we don't need in the body. So, but truly speaking, this is a physical explanation. Why we are breathing and why breath is connected to life is not really clear. We do not know what it is, truly speaking. Why don't we live without breathing? By eating? Eating would be enough. There is enough energy and so on. Why this breath is needed? What this breathing is doing to us? What is this prana about? So there are many questions which cannot be answered in the paradigm we are looking at it from our scientific paradigm. We don't deal with these matters altogether. But for the rishis, for the Vedantic rishis, of breathing in and breathing out, completely different functions. They are seen as building up the self, the body, the individual formation, which is available on each level. Annamaya Purusha, my physical body, is the self formed in the physical world. Then I have another self, Pranamaya Purusha, which is built in my vital being. And then I have mental self, Manomaya Purusha. There is again another body which is built in the mental being. And then I have Vijnanamaya Purusha, which is the body built in the supramental level of consciousness. And I have Anandamaya Purusha, which is built in the transcendental blissful state where my soul is. So starting from my soul down to my physical body, everywhere I have some sense of body. And you see this Annam, it may look like physical body only, but it is not only physical. It's a formation which holds all the faculties within itself, within its body, and allows it to operate from that center. Make sense? It's a difficult question. This may take some time to think of. So I'm not insisting that it should make totally sense. But yes, Navni?
Can you repeat the last part one more time?
One more time. So if you look at these faculties and let us look at them level by level from other faculties which are visible first. Then we come to these and they will become also visible. For example, these four major ones, Manas and Vak, Chakshuk and Shrotram, do I need to translate this or you understand them? It's Indian terms. Yeah, they should be understood. These four is Brahma Chatushpad. Brahma Chatushpad is Brahman on four legs. Yeah? Brahman on four legs entered this world as spirit, as prana, and embodied itself in the material body, Annam. So to embody for the spirit, these four faculties were needed. What are these four faculties? Basically, one, Shrotram and Vag belongs to Nama, to the name, faculty of the name, and Manas and Chakshuk belongs to Rupa, Nama and Rupa. Notice how beautiful it is, how simple and how exquisite. So Nama and Rupa, by Nama and Rupa it is said by Shatapatha Brahmana that Brahman entered this world. There was no other way for him, for the spirit to enter the manifestation. He had to split vision and seeing and hearing. And by split of seeing and hearing from one consciousness, by distinguishing these two faculties, he could enter the manifestation. He could embody himself in the body. So here we have, I was telling you once that how we understand things, we understand by hearing and by the word, and we see by the sight. Seeing is not explaining to us, is not giving us understanding of what we are seeing. If I show you something, this telephone, you will see that it is something. If you know that it is telephone, you know already it by name, that it is a mobile which can do many things. If you press then the if, you see, you don't see it me pressing, but you already know it from somewhere else by the name, by the word. You know what this thing which you see will be doing. It is not doing it now. So everything which goes beyond the immediate seeing of the thing belongs to this Shrotram and Vak domain of Nama. Yeah? So to know what it is, we need to have that comprehension. We have to have an understanding what to do with it. So these two major ones, comprehensive and apprehensive consciousness. So to say, apprehensive is manas and chakshuh, and comprehensive is shrotram and vak, embody the spirit in matter. When we say embody the spirit in matter, we mean the spirit is embodied on every level, on the supramental, mental, vital, and physical, not only in physical, but on all these levels, which are below transcendental. So there is Vak, for example, on all the levels. The highest level of Vak, as you know, it is Paravak, the supreme word. It is the supramental speech, which coming down in its movement of flesh becomes an intuition, Pashyanti Vak. And that flash lightning comes down and makes us speak, or makes us prepare our speech, dressing it into the language. We are using language to express it, that intuitive movement of Paravak or Pashyanti Vak. And it becomes Madhyama Vak, spoken, or how to say, expressed in language. And then it is spoken, Vaikhari, outwardly, and we can hear. So before me saying what I'm saying, these all levels were engaged, from the supramental, mental, vital, and physical. The same with the hearing. Hearing on the highest level is Shruti, pure inspiration, pure knowledge, knowledge which includes all possible relations between objects, between selves. Between different selves, their relations are understood and perceived by this all-pervading inspiration hearing. And when it comes to the level of the mental, it is a mental hearing, hearing of the concepts, recognizing and cognizing, not cognizing and recognizing, sorry, but comprehending and understanding what is being spoken or seen or understood. And then when it comes to the level of the word, there is a distinction between words and their relations and their semantic content, to understand what they mean and why they are connected in this particular sentence or text. This is hearing on the level of the Madhyama. And on the level of the outer, we hear the word, or we hear any other expression of this outer world. So this hearing is all pervasive, from Shruti to our outer ears. The same with mind. There is supermind, there is overmind, there is intuitive mind, there is proper mind, mental mind, there is vital mind, physical mind, there is mental, physical. So it comes to the very body. So we have mind on all the levels, from the highest to the lowest, to the physical. The capacity to concentrate, the capacity to hold the object of sense in order to identify with it. And chakshukh, seeing. From the highest level, it is drishti, a revelation, where you see the truth directly. And then on each level you have a sight. You have a sight on the mental level, on the mental level, intuition, of course, intuitive sight. You have a vital sight when you see the dreams in your state of sleep. And then you see physically. So the sight is present on all levels. Yes?
Like, do you, like on these higher levels, do you see, like, do you have to see only in images?
Yeah, it can be images, it can be something else, it can be energies, colors, movements. You can see many things. You can see everything what is presented to you as, so to say, as such, yeah? As it is. So to say, what is seeing and what is hearing? What is the difference between seeing and hearing? We once discussed this at the beginning, but I don't think we really got it. If you think of what is really seeing, what it involves, what it does to us when we see, it's kind of interesting thing. What is really happening when you see? Navni, can you describe this?
Like you said, you start identifying with the thing, like that you're looking at.
Yeah, you are identifying thing as such. So not even identifying, you are recognizing, cognizing that there is some other self than you. And once you recognize that, cognize it as such, then you see, look, this is the vase. Look, this is the computer, and this is telephone. But telephone, computer, everything follows the first sight. First you have to see it, and then the comprehension follows. And comprehension follows by the name, nearly immediately, but with certain delay. You will see that there is always a delay in comprehension. It's a strange thing, but it is happening. If you start observing it, you will see it. That there is a moment, there is a delay before you understand what you see. You see and then you understand. So seeing is this faculty to recognize or cognize thing, the image of things as such, and regardless to identification with yourself. But here what is interesting, that without identification with oneself, sorry, I jumped. Without identification with oneself, none of these would be possible. So you cannot see the thing as such without holding it already with yourself. So it is only when you identify the thing with yourself, so to say, tie it up to yourself, then you can see it and understand what it is. So we can say that the first thing is identification, or maybe seeing and identification together, seeing and then holding and then understanding. But I think without holding, seeing also is not possible even. But this is, of course, an open debate, and it has to be tried in laboratories and so on, and see how we really do it. It would be interesting to examine these faculties. I don't think we have equipment yet to read.
Vladimir?
Yes?
Can there be
Who is talking?
feeling?
I don't see you. Wait a minute.
Suhani. Hi.
Suhani, I don't see you, don't hear you. Wait, I have to have some connection to you. Okay.
Hi. Does seeing immediately lead to thinking without feeling?
Say it
Or
again.
feeling follows thinking?
Please.
Does feeling follow thinking or comprehending?
Feeling.
Yeah.
I think feeling, the sense of feeling, samjnana has to be first. Without this kind of feeling the objects as oneself, one cannot comprehend or do anything with it. So to say, this knowledge by identity is the major movement, without which nothing can be known. I can know only things which I myself am, as Sri Aurobindo says. If I am not identified with the thing, I cannot know it.
Huh.
So,
But identification is a cognitive activity or a feeling activity?
identification is, with the word cognition is a lot of also can be said, and we actually discussed this in our seminar, because cognition is the word which means perceiving. Yes, perceiving doesn't mean understanding. So cognizing as such, or cognizing and holding it with oneself, does not mean that I understand it automatically. Understanding will follow in time only, and sometimes will not follow. I will see the thing, but I will not comprehend it. I will not know what it is. Can you imagine that? Seeing something you don't understand? Yes, you can, most probably.
Yeah. So when there is skewed identification through knowledge, it is because of the skewed cognizing.
Well, first of all, these four faculties are acting as one consciousness, six of them acting as one consciousness. And, but we are trying to figure out the hierarchy of their involvement. Yes, most probably there are ways of involving these faculties in different fashion, but there is only one major thing, that to know anything, we have to hold it, yeah, within our consciousness. So to say, if I don't hold it, it's not staying, I cannot know it because it is not there. So it has to be there for me. And to be there for me, it has to become me.
To be there for me, it has to become me. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's why knowledge by identity. We identify with the object of thing because we cannot know it otherwise. We don't know. Knowledge, the information which we read and remembered is not knowledge. We mean really knowledge of the object of thing. Even information what we read, we have to hold in memory, and we have to exercise this as object in order and identify with ourselves in order to know it. Even that information, we have to do the same procedure. But what I wanted to say, that I wanted to come to Vayu and Annayo, Prana and Anna, and I lost my track, sorry. I promised to come to these two, but I covered all these four, but these two are still staying open. There is some life energy, there is a force, conscious force, which is prana, within everything, within these faculties, which is being activated or being present on each level. And there is a self, so to say, present at each level. So there is mental self, vital self, with its force consciousness, and these faculties of seeing and hearing. And here we can see three major streams: hearing, seeing, and touch. And Sri Aurobindo speaking about these three, as you know, that these are three major accesses to reality, three basic cognitive accesses. In Vedic terminology, these are truth consciousness, corresponds to drishti, shruti, and viveka. Drishti, shruti, and viveka. the direct vision of the truth, the direct hearing of its word, and the direct discrimination of the right. So to have this direct discrimination of the right, we need somehow this third one, yeah? The body. It has to discriminate the focus, the center of this force, of this activity, of this consciousness, of this being. If it does not recognize it, discriminate it, distinguish it from others, there will be no way of dealing with it. So to say, it's not enough to have seeing and holding the image of things. The image has to be held. And this is the image or that very thing with its consciousness which exists. So Vayu and Anayu, or Prana and Apana, is our living body. All right, I will not hold on to it too long because my purpose is different. So what I wanted to say that these are the faculties, but when we see them in the realm of the higher consciousness, we will see that they turn to be samjnana, jnana, vijnana, and prajnana, and we looked at them. And I was explaining to you how these work. Somebody can explain to me how these four work? Somebody remembers this? This is very profound psychology, spiritual psychology, which we usually don't have anywhere. How samjnana, prajnana, vijnana, and ajnana work together simultaneously in any action. Remember, we had many examples. No? Nobody can explain? It's a bit above the head, over the head, over the head psychology, overhead psychology, we can call it, not coming down. Yes, it is overhead. These are secret operations. Of course, they are far away, but they are always present here at the same time. Samjnana holds the image of things, yes. It's the contact of consciousness with the image of things by which there is a sensible possession of it in its substance. If prajnana can be described as outgoing of apprehensive consciousness, to possess its object in conscious energy, to know it as such, I can add, sanjnana can be described as the inbringing movement of apprehensive consciousness, which draws the object placed before it back to itself, so as to possess it in conscious substance, to feel it. So samjnana is the essential sense which holds the object of sense and identifies with ourself, and makes it property of our, so to say, possesses it in conscious substance, identifies with ourself. Prajnana is outgoing of apprehensive consciousness and knowing thing as such. So vijnana is original comprehensive consciousness which holds an image of things in its essence, totality, and parts and properties. It is the original, spontaneous, true, and complete view of it, which belongs properly to the supermind, and of which mind has only a shadow in the highest operations of comprehensive intellect. So it's a comprehensive consciousness which sees how this thing as such, which is held by us and felt by us, connects to all other things. How meaningfully it connects, how everything interacts with it and what it does to the rest and rest, how the rest is influencing it. This is where comprehension lies. Understanding of what thing is. Otherwise, it is nothing if it is not doing anything to other things. And ajnana is the operation by which consciousness dwells on the image of things, so as to govern, to possess it in power. That means to influence from our side. And I was telling you that I take a cup and drink, and in this drinking of the cup, as you remember, there are 4 operations are present. I cannot take the cup if I don't identify it as such. If I don't hold it onto myself, I don't have a connection with myself. I cannot do it also. I cannot also take the cup from the table and put it on the table if I don't see and comprehend the relations of the cup, table, room, my mouth, water in it. So I have to comprehend all those relations. And this is Vijnana. And there is also Ajnana. I do something. I reach out, take the cup, and I bring it to my mouth and put it back. So my will is acting. My self-expression is acting at the same time. Does it make sense?
I don't understand the last one.
The acting upon it, yeah? For example, I would have identified it and would see it as such and understand how it relates to everything. But I cannot reach out and take it because I don't have this operation by which consciousness dwells on an image of things as to govern and possess it in power. If I will not exercise my power over it, I will not be able to move it or to change the situation. But I can change the situation. I can take and break the glass.
So this is the one that allows any movement, basically.
Yes, it allows any change, any communication, any self-expression. I express myself towards this image of things in a particular way. It is actually the faculty of the word, logos, action, will. And we spoke about verities. Now, I want to come back to this new presentation of application. And today we will be talking a little bit of this, which is very important. In my view, I think the future discovery will be within these faculties of consciousness. Behind thinking, seeing, speaking, hearing, there are these major samjnana, prajnana, ajnana, vijnana. And if you look at them, because I truly changed the meaning of them a little bit, thinking for me is not thinking in terms of as we know it today. It's something deeper. It's focusing and concentrating consciousness on something. This is thinking for me. It's not the process of logical deduction, which is done by the word. I'm not involving word here. I'm taking the major faculty, as Sri Aurobindo describes the mind. The major, he says, faculty is of concentrating and holding. And then the rest is following it. If this concentration is not there, nothing is possible. We cannot know anything, neither ourselves nor the world. So this holding is allowing other faculties to emerge. So self-knowledge about the self itself is something unknowable, something we cannot understand. We cannot really comprehend the self. And we can only apprehend. So this inbringing of image of things and identifying with it is apprehensive. It is apprehensive. It's not comprehensive. It is only allowing a connection. Connection and concentration of consciousness. Seeing it as such also is possible because the connection is established, so we can see that it is different from us as such, not as we feel it, but as it is. It's more objective self-knowledge, if it is possible to say. So subjective self-knowledge is holding and feeling the image of things within ourselves, whereas objective is seeing it as such, which is also apprehensive, which does not give you the knowledge what it is. It only fixes the possibility of holding it as such, separate from yourself. But look, they are all present simultaneously. So once these are two fixed, once we have it connected to ourselves and feel it, and on the other hand we have it as such, we can express ourselves towards it in a particular manner or fashion, and we can comprehend it, how it is related to all other selves and objects. So this comprehension is relative knowledge, relation knowledge. So our understanding comes from relations only, not from the thing is as such, but from the relational knowledge, how things relate, what they do to each other, how they influence each other. In that we find meaning. So meaning emerges not from the self itself, but from that what it does to other selves, how it relates to them. Meaning is relational. The meaning of the pen or the pencil is to write. It's what it does. It's not in its form. It is in what it will be doing. It will be writing. The meaning of the book is not in the form of the pages, but in that we can read and comprehend, understand some knowledge, read knowledge from the book. Reading, which is not written in the book, that which is not imprinted on the book, showing us what it means. It has to be figured out through relation, what it does to us. I read the book. So the book is doing for me this, has with me this relation which is meaningful, and from there we gather the meaning of the book, but not from the form of the book. So comprehension comes from the relation knowledge. And then feeling is interesting, is this manifestation knowledge, prana, yeah? Which is already representational. So once these four are established, and they are simultaneously established, then there is a possibility of subjective self-image or object of sense. So we can subjectively create it differently or shape it in the form we find interesting for ourselves. It's one more additional faculty of prana, which is shaping forms of life. And then it becomes sensible to object, we can touch it as such. Yes? Yes, Navni?
I don't understand the feeling.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I too. I don't understand totally, but I feel the great meaning in it. So to say, manifestation knowledge is going beyond these. It is already shaping the vital force of the object. It is giving it a sense of sensible possession. It makes it a being which is charged with its own self-will. It is a self-existent object. It's like bringing to birth a child, or bringing to birth a creature, or bringing to birth some, architecture, some piece of art. So what do you do in the artistic sense? And this is art, where art belongs. Yes. So the artist is creating all those, vital elements. He connects them in his own way as he likes them to present some idea or some sense of the self he has. So he's subjectively creating the world. And then this subjective creation in his imagination, in his feeling, in his inner seeing, in his inner touch, becomes the object. And the object of art, which we can touch and see objectively. So first the subjective sense, and then the objective being comes into existence. So actually, these four previous do not involve these two last ones. They have to be additional. So we have self-knowledge, spirit knowledge, and manifestation knowledge. Active and perceptive. And this is very interesting because we'll have the whole approach. Why hearing is more objective and seeing is more objective. Objective is word, perceptive better. Perceptive than thinking and speaking. Speaking is more active in the sense that we express ourselves rather than the object. Of course, towards the object, but the expression is ours. Whereas perceptive means we are perceiving it as such. We want to see it and to understand it. We are not acting upon it. But by these two, first, active self-knowledge, we act upon it. We bring it into ourselves and hold it, and speaking, we go out and possess it in power. These are our movements of ourself. We do this with the object. Now, if we take this scheme into another domain, we will see very interesting parallels. We will see that this inbringing and holding the image of things, or feeling, essential sense, is the major faculty of our psychological approach to knowledge. It is how we feel ourselves, how we feel the object within ourselves, how we accommodate and hold the world in ourselves. It is our psychological approach. Psychology in this sense is not the psychology as the subject, but psychology as the approach to knowledge. And philosophical approach will be very different. It will be more objective. If psychological approach is subjective self-knowledge, and I'm sure you would agree with it immediately, that subjective self-knowledge is psychological approach. Subjective self-knowledge. Of course, today they apply to behavior and so on, biological psychology, but this is not a psychology, it's something else. It's a domain of psychology. It's a kind of secondary domain, but the major one is subjective self-knowledge, how you know yourself subjectively. Is it not so? Must be so. Yeah, nod. Yeah, very nice, thank you. Otherwise, you speak to the empty space. Yes, it is subjective self-knowledge. But can you imagine this subjective self-knowledge will be objectivized? So you will see it objectively everywhere. And this is the philosophical approach. You will formulate your vision, your philosophy. You will see how you, or the subjective knowledge, self-knowledge, becomes objective. How all other selves exist and coexist in this mosaic of many different forms, a mosaic of different selves, how they overlap and coexist in this self-knowledge. So it is the essential knowledge seen outside in the bigger picture. It covers much bigger domain than our own subjective self-knowledge. Our own subjective self-knowledge dives deep into ourselves. Objective self-knowledge goes everywhere, vast. Relation knowledge becomes linguistic approach, how we express ourselves, self-expression, and formulation of ourselves in language, in words. Words are only symbols here. We can express ourselves in different languages, in the dance, in poetic, in mathematical, musical, artistic, and so on languages. Self-expression is not needed to be only verbal. It can be gesture, look, smile. It's already self-expression. It's an action. It's the language. It's the language which we understand and comprehend. We understand and comprehend the smile. So we don't need to speak much. We can see that the communication took place through this smiling of someone to someone else. It's like the word saying hello. Here I am. How are you? Right. And sociological, if that is projected into the social relations and meaningful relations in the society, among many different beings in the society, then we have this meaningful settlement of all possible relations between people, all kinds of laws and preferences and cultural and religious and social phenomena. We have the whole set of things which is created by these self-expressions of the individuals. Individuals express themselves, and these expressions, these words, these relations to others become the social norm, the society. So there we see a bigger tapestry of relations, meaningful in a particular format. And if you travel from country to country, you will see that these sets are very different. For example, in Europe, we have one set of what is good and what is bad, what should be done or what you cannot do. And in India, it's a completely different set of things. And in Japan or Korea, it will be completely different one. You will be surprised how differently we are viewing ourselves and what is valuable to us. And so sociological is on this space, on the scale of space, whereas historical is on the scale of time, which goes beyond our time, but also develops the same social relations, the expressions of different subjects, of different individuals. And then manifestation knowledge. It can be manifested in the artistic vision, mind, feeling, charging it with a vital force and making it alive and bringing it to birth, to the physical birth, creating a physical phenomenon. And that is becoming an outer approach to this, where we can study the physical part of it, and it becomes a scientific approach. So you see the whole line, but without psychological approach, nothing is possible. Without the subjective self-knowledge, no other knowledge is possible. Notice. If there is no subjective self-knowledge, objective self-knowledge is not possible. The relation is not possible because there is nobody to express that and to settle it in the tapestry of relations. And there is no artistic, so to say, would be possible, or even matter, for that matter, is not possible. So material manifestation depends on this self-knowledge, subjective self-knowledge. This is my thinking. I will tell you something more and we will come back to it for your questions if you have some. Is it confusing, or I'm speaking too fast, most probably? Yeah?
No.
Okay? I'm trying to fit everything, all the material into one session. What I wanted us to go through slowly together is this. We will just read through and think of it. What is needed for us as human beings? What approaches to knowledge are needed in order for us to function totally in this world? So philosophical approach, I started with philosophical. Everyone has to have a metaphysical picture of the world, some system of mental views or beliefs, a metaphysical paradigm, yeah, kind of how things are, Big Bang or anything, you know, maybe not Big Bang, maybe the world is on the 3 elephants or something, whatever, and the earth is flat, doesn't matter, but that has to be there for some reason. It includes a hidden hierarchy of understanding of what is first and what is next, what is important and what is less important, and how it constitutes one reality without which the reality cannot be approached in a rational manner. So there has to be some correlation to this vision, to the metaphysical picture. We know that the world is this, okay, and within that paradigm we can act. We can act with our consciousness. It's easier for us. Yeah? It's this view, philosophy. What is your philosophy? They ask in the consultancy when they come to some firm or some business unit. What is your philosophy? How do you see yourself with other selves? How do you see yourself? Not how do you relate, but how you see and you want to relate. How will you relate? Because your philosophy will define the relations, meaningful relations, hierarchy of important meanings. Now, psychological approach. Everyone has to know what oneself to a certain extent and to have a certain personal attitude towards the world. This knowledge of oneself is not in full accordance with one's own metaphysical paradigm. There is a constant ongoing interaction between the two, which correlates, corrects, and even changes the metaphysical mental picture of the world, and vice versa. Without it, reality cannot be approached in a truthful, sincere manner. So if I do not know myself to a certain extent, and have certain attitude towards the world, subjective attitude, I would not be able to truthfully investigate into this world. So there is ongoing correlation of our philosophy and psychology. They're totally working with one another and contradicting all the time. And this contradiction is very very meaningful, because it creates the dynamism of the development. So our understanding of the world is constantly changing by our personal experience. Our personal experience is influencing our metaphysical picture, and metaphysical picture is influencing our experience. It is when we read Vedic texts, they are influencing us so much that we are tuning to different type of experience and see that what the text says, what the metaphysical vision says. We start to become sensitive towards these matters. Or we had a great experience and we can say, no, it's not like this, it's wrong, it's a wrong idea, I have completely different experience, and I can change my metaphysical picture. This is going on without us thinking about it. I'm just speaking about it more kind of objectively for us to see. It's going on, whether we want it or not. So next pair of philological and sociological approaches. philological approach to knowledge. Everyone has to have to use some language, outwardly or inwardly, to become conscious of our speech as an expression of oneself, and language as a system of mental categories by which we think. To know how they function is indispensable for building a metaphysical picture of the world and understanding ourselves psychologically. How our thoughts and feelings relate to our speech faculty and how it influences them. Without it, no serious research is possible in any field, and the reality cannot be dealt with in a correct, precise manner. So the word is not only expressing oneself, an expression of oneself, it is also giving us a possibility to hold the precision in our approach. It allows mind to be very precise and holding onto certain concepts, not to shift, because mind is holding not only the image of things, it holds also the words, the concepts. The words become the concepts in the mind, and mind holding on to them can truly be very correct and precise. Sociological approach. One has to know one's own roots, history, religion, social and national heredity, what state one belongs to, what nation, what community, etc. To know one's own past in order to understand one's present and future. This knowledge is wider than our individual psychological or even philosophical paradigm. It introduces a knowledge about relations in time and space beyond our reach. It draws our consciousness to a larger reality of community, country, earth, and finally to the universe in cosmic existence. It brings the aspect of the spirit into picture, a larger reality inside and outside ourselves. It indicates a unifying phenomenon of space and time in which we live. Without this knowledge, man will not be able to understand fully the growth and the purpose of his life. There is a constant growth, progress. There is a constant ongoing change. This cannot be understood without this knowledge, without this approach. And the final one, artistic and scientific approaches. Artistic approach to knowledge is, it is a refinement of all our activities in life in its aspect of beauty, harmony, and perfection. It is what the spirit has already manifested, conquered, so to say, in life as a result of a long period of evolution. It is what makes us cultured. It is the aim of creation, and it is its path. To develop ourselves fully individually and collectively, we have to learn to manifest beauty and harmony of the spirit, to seek after it, to embody it. So it's ongoing bringing of the spirit into the material manifestation. Scientific approach is the knowledge of matter is indispensable for the understanding of manifestation. All the changes, philosophical, psychological, philological, sociological, and cultural, are possible only in matter. Matter is the foundation and the embodiment of any change. It is fixing everything to a certain stability so that another change can take place. If matter would not be there, would not be able to fix it, the next step would have no meaning, for it would have no ground to manifest a new change. There would be no new change. There will be a fluctuation of the old. So here we can see the fundamentals which are important for our consciousness to function and for the whole world. And the last So if you look at them again, you will see immediately why these 6 are important. And these 6 we took from Vedanta, from Upanishads, yes. Manah, Annam, Pranam, Chakshuh, Shrotram, Mano, Vacham, iti. This is the definition of consciousness given in Taittiriya, these 6 major faculties. And here we have this very interesting scheme which will explain to you something which we never thought of. That we have a domain here in which we are seeking, in which we are applying ourselves, and the approach. The approaches and domains are the same. So psychology in pure sense would be the psychological approach in the domain of psychology, in the domain of subjective self-knowledge. If I apply my subjective self-knowledge in the domain of the subjective self-knowledge, I am speaking or thinking or being psychological in my approach. But I can change the domain. My psychological approach of subjective self-knowledge can be viewing in the domain of the philosophy. And then it will be psychology of philosophy, psychology of language, psychology of history, psychology of art, psychology of science. And you will be surprised, you just Google any one of these and you will see so many hits, millions of them. All these subjects already exist, but they are not viewed in the system. They are not understood in the system. They are viewed as separate subjects. Once you have this systematic approach, understanding what is this psychological approach to knowledge, then you would see that, it works the same on every level. We have these philosophy of psychology, philosophy of language, philosophy of history, philosophy of art, philosophy of science, and so on. Language of philosophy of psychology, language of history, language of art. So the means of self-expression in art, the means of self-expression in psychology. This is how I translate it. Once we understand that behind these are major faculties of consciousness, we get into very interesting domain of knowledge. We understand everything. Can you imagine that you would understand everything? That would be funny. Yeah? Understand everything. Nothing is beyond. Because these domains were created by our faculties. Psychology would not be possible if that particular approach to knowledge would not be there. And that particular approach is determined by our samjnana, by our capacity to hold on to ourselves, to identify the image of things with ourselves, which creates this domain of finding out how it is doing in all other examples, samples. Anyhow, if you ask me anything about this scheme, any subject to explain, I will explain to you, and you will see the beauty of this scheme. Anyhow, this was our seminar about, and I wanted to tell you that I think, I hope, I believe, truly speaking, that this would be the application of this knowledge in terms of already more rational approach, rational structure. It is not denying the rational approach, the mental approach. It is incorporating its strength. It makes it useful for us. Okay, I stop here. I already spoke so many words. They all fly over the head somewhere. No?
Vladimir?
Yes.
As you said, it is flying over the head. I really still cannot put this one which you're showing us, in which you have categorized the approaches and domain into the earlier said self-knowledge and the apprehensive knowledge and the materialistic. I think I would need some more time to like really comprehend it and understand. So I
Sure.
think I would need time. So maybe I'll write to you in case I have something more on this.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you will. Thank you, Prema. You broke the ice.
We'll send it to us.
Yeah, I will send you the presentation. But what are your thoughts? Tell me, what do you think? Is it really possible to move in this way? To see how faculties are identified with approaches to knowledge and domains, that behind domains there are particular approach to consciousness more dominant than others, and which creates this particular subject and domain. Do you think it is realistic, or it is something very...
Well, from the chart which you show, it seems to be like really realistic, but somehow maybe because never looking at it at this way, now I cannot say like, you know, how my approach would be or something. That's why I said I need some more time to like really take this in, because the way you explain and the way like this chart which I see in front of me, it's like it has everything that we possibly know of today. You know, it includes science, it includes arts, it includes linguistic, everything. So this seems to be quite realistic, but I don't know, or I don't want to comment anything more, just because I still need to understand it. I still cannot see this, you know, together with the self-knowledge and the spirit knowledge. This still seem to me somehow it still separates to me, so I need to integrate it within myself and then see if I can understand or not.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prema. Some more thoughts?
I feel it maps really perfectly, and it's just perfect for me. Like it just makes total sense.
Very nice. Thank you.
Beautiful. It's just amazing.
For me too. It's really kind of puts everything into perspective, which I can now handle, and I am not hesitating, and I'm not mixing up things, you know, I'm not muddling with them, I'm not unsure, and I am not very sure at the same time, but I have a direction where I can see that my inner consciousness produced the domains of knowledge in which I'm studying myself, because these faculties are there. So I connected them to faculties, and it makes totally sense to me. How else would these domains come into existence? From where? From nowhere? From somewhere outside? No, these are subjective self-expressions of my consciousness. And I apply them. So to learn to be, truly to learn psychological approach to knowledge, to be psychologist, to always look with this approach and find the meaning in everything. So you have to cover all of these. You cannot be only psychologist per se. You have to have to exercise this approach in philosophy, in linguistics, in history and sociology, in art, and even in science, in the objective world. So to say, maybe that would be psychology of science, something closer to what it is today. But, or rather, science of psychology would be, yes, here it is, science of psychology, scientific approach to psychology, that is biological psychology, behaviorism, and so on. But truly speaking, to see all these linked as one consciousness, so we have to cover all the domains within ourselves and be available for this research. It's not about us already knowing what it is, it's about knowing how to exercise our consciousness. and discover the truth in every of the domains. It's not remembering the information that it is so and not understanding it. It's always being fresh in discovery of things. And that is something else. It's really very beautiful. Then you become alive, you live again, you can engage with the world and yourself. And not just remember things and that's it.
When I saw this final map, I just felt like clapping, like, because it was so perfectly related with, like, I could see the whole, like how you'd related this with that, and then finally come to this map which has the entire knowledge of all of humanity. So I just felt like clapping when I saw it. And also it's so cool because no matter what area you take to study or to work in, it's leading you back to studying the faculties of consciousness and yourself and your own. It's quite amazing.
Right.
Thank you.
Each subject is connected to everything.
Right. Thank you, Zalina. I'm very, very happy that this is a really, for me, was also a wow discovery, such a discovery that I couldn't hold it. And for many years, I'm going around trying to speak about it, and everybody looks at me as if I'm saying something, all right, it's interesting, but, life is going on. And to engage, and we had this seminar for 3 days, finally, and even my friends who were with me for so long there, and philosophers and well-developed people in Sri Aurobindo studies, they were always somehow resisting this concept. But now it is completely different. Everybody is kind of opening their eyes, and they started to speak, wow, look, we can have some rational approach which is not belittling or making, changing our spiritual movement of consciousness, our deeper self. So it is not denying it. Some kind of transparently permits it to come to the front, though it is totally rational structure. And deals with rational subjects. We even discussed this, that these domains have to be deconstructed. We cannot keep them as such because they are not built on this transparency of our faculties. And because of that, they build up so much data around it, which is useless and clogging their understanding. Useless in the sense that it has to be put into the perspective which will be easy to access with this approach. And then I started to study texts and see how different authors shift from one perspective to another. Suppose a philosopher will be doing his treatise, will be doing his investigation into some subject, into some concept. He will be jumping from one approach to another whenever it is convenient for him to do it, without being aware of it even, that he's changing their views, their approach. I started to feel these approaches. I feel when I'm psychologically speaking, or when I am shifting into philosophical overview, or into the linguistic precision of the terms and etymology and the meaning of the words, and so on. And historical, when I'm becoming overviewing it on the scale of time, I can feel it in myself. It's like different feelings, different colors of your consciousness, if you like. But people, when they speak in general, they don't feel these shifts. And their arguments are always on this misunderstandings are coming from the arguments coming from different perspectives or different approaches. I speak psychologically, and somebody argues with me from the philosophical point of view, and he doesn't see that he has changed the approach. If then I see, he does it philosophically, then I start being philosophical with him, and we can discuss very well. When I change my approach, he cannot change it because he doesn't see it. But if he would see, it would be a marvelous thing. We could always align our approaches, and there will be never truly argument. because all the arguments are because of these mixtures of approaches. I think, at least. And we did very interesting exercise in the past in Auroville. Six of us, representing different approach, sat in the circle, and we discussed different topics from these different perspectives. I was talking from linguistic point of view, always. Somebody was from psychological, from philosophical, sociological, artistic, and scientific. 6 people who identified themselves with these approaches, who think that they are really those, visionaries, hearing, or tactile people. And when we sat together and discussed one topic, we did one day seminar. I can't forget that. It was really something. With many people participating, but they were not in the circle. They were kind of sitting outside and listening to it. So we went one round. We were discussing the evolution of consciousness, but everybody had to stick to this approach alone, not to change it. If I'm discussing it from the linguistic point of view, it has to be only linguistic. Then when after 10 minutes of my presentation of the topic, there is a shift towards sociological. The person from sociological perspective has to stick to that approach and not to change it into philosophy or psychology, because it's very easy to become psychological in sociology and then to say, look how beautiful it is. Yes, it is beautiful, but you are not doing the right approach right now, because there are 6 of us. So once we move from one to another, we all feel the difference in approaches. We learn about them. And I learn what is really that philosophical or psychological, because I see it in the perspective of this being spoken from other approaches. So when we make first round, there is a feeling as if you got full plate of things, all understandings possible about the subject. You're totally realized one round. But when you do the next round, it is even more important. The second round makes you totally, absolutely, blown away from the understanding of the subject. It's an amazing thing. I think there is some occult sense. Yes, Prema, you lower your hand. What does it mean? You want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there is a video recording of this session which you are discussing about, because I think I feel like I would like to understand this a little more. So maybe that would give me more clarity, because it's really like mind blowing when I look at it, but still I don't understand it in depth. So I would like to know if there's a video available, if that's available, if you can just circulate.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. But even from this scheme, if you look at this, though it is so self-explanatory, it can be that you can have, for example, even more deviations into the fields. For example, language of psychology of philosophy, or I don't know, history of philosophy of language. You can deviate even further, but it will not change the sense of how you approach it. It will stay with you. So you will have historical approach to the philosophy of language. So you will have that particular perfect approach, hierarchy of approaches aligned with you, which give you already an understanding what to do and how to look at things. Yeah, very, very happy that Zalina saw it. So happy. Thank you. So it's a big thing if somebody sees it. It's lovely. For me, because it was kind of, it came from Upanishads. You see, it's not that I was kind of thinking of these approaches in my own terms and created some ideas. It is there. And I thought, well, how come that they explain consciousness only in six major approaches, faculties? And then I saw that they are related. They are beautifully related. They combined, they kind of cover all our knowledge about ourselves and the world. Anyhow, this is the presentation of today. The conclusion was that the pure faculties of consciousness are the properties of the universal Purusha, and therefore of every individual, independently from his cultural, national, religious, or social heredity, which emerged in the process of evolution. So basically, when we speak about these faculties and domains, you can see that they're going beyond cultural and hereditary and social and national and cultural and religious backgrounds. So to say, they're going beyond, they belong to the universal consciousness, which is always there. It can create many cultures, yes, many domains, but in itself, it is spiritual. It belongs to all humanity, to all beings. Training and educating these faculties, universal faculties in the individual, can be considered as a part of universal or spiritual education for all, leading eventually to the discovery of the innermost being. The language as a system of meaningful relations, this is what I added today, in the society and connection to the land and its history, represents the development of the psychic relations and its influence on the manifestation in terms of culture. There is a very interesting thought which came to me by reading Sri Aurobindo's Ideals of Human Unity, the Ideal of Human Unity, where he is talking about this, that psychic being has a relation to the manifested world, to the physical world through language. This is that line of self-expression and the settlement of certain social structure on certain land creates a particular approach of psychic relations. This paragraph I didn't have before and really didn't even understand this. But now when I was rereading my presentation, I saw that these faculties, they are universal, but manifested, when they are manifested in the particular social structure and people connected to land and language, it becomes more and more psychic, and it allows psychic being to manifest these relations of love and brotherhood. This is additional thing, goes beyond our scope of today's presentation, but about psychic and 12 qualities of the mother, one can mention here that they are important. All right, this is it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing that today. It was really insightful. When you said the last description of history, of psychology of art, it suddenly just made click and I kind of got it how it all fits together in one piece.
Right.
Really wonderful presentation. Please do send it back. I'd like to have a look at it.
Sure, I will send you right now. Okay, thank you and all the best, and see you online some other time.
Thank you.